So basically this refers to, let me just write this down actually, I think that will be better. If there is a change in price, how responsive will the change in quantity demanded be? So by responsiveness, I mean, hopefully you all understand what I'm talking about now. In the case of medicine, what we saw was that when there was a change in price, the change in quantity demanded was not very big. It was a relatively small change, which means that quantity demanded is not very price responsive. Price can change by a large amount, but QD will still change by a smaller amount. And it can be for medicine, it can be for rice, let's say. If rice becomes more expensive, what are you going to do? Not have rice? Well, in Bangladesh, rice is the main staple food, so we have to keep buying rice. So you will notice that rice is not very price responsive. The demand for rice is not very price responsive. Or think about education. If education were to become very expensive, what are you going to do? Just stop going to school? No, probably not. You'll continue going to school and pay the high price. So the demand for education is not very price responsive. On the contrary, if we look at Coke, when there was a change in price, there was a relatively much larger change in quantity demanded. So basically, Coke is very price responsive. If price change by even a little bit, there will be a much larger change in the quantity that is demanded of Coke. And this isn't just for Coke, a lot of other things are also price responsive. So what I want you guys to do right now is pause this video for, well, for however long it takes. Pause this video and try to come up with examples of 5 price responsive goods. Oh, okay. 5 highly price responsive goods and 5 not very price responsive goods. So just do this. And once you have done this, so 5 here, 5 here, once you found your 10 goods, what you should try to figure out, we are going to be talking about all of this later on, but before we do that, what I want you guys to do is try to figure out what are the type of goods that are highly price responsive. Even if there is a small change in price, there will be a much larger change in quantity demanded. And what are the type of goods that are not very price responsive? So even if there is a very large change in price, the quantity that is demanded of these goods will not change by a lot. All right. So pause the video right here and give it a go. Okay, so hopefully you guys have found your examples of 5 of them. So from responsiveness, what we are going to talk about now is elasticity. So you all know what elasticities are, right? They're in your pants. They are in a lot of other places, but that's the best example I could think of. They are the things that are keeping your pants up and preventing them from falling down. So obviously there are different degrees of elasticity. So if something is not very elastic, you can pull at it and it won't stretch very much. It will stretch a little, but it will not stretch a lot. And on the contrary, there are things that are very elastic. So if you pull them, they stretch a lot. And that effectively is what we are worried with here. So let me just draw these two diagrams again. So Q, P, Q, P, and okay. If this is one of our demand curve, and if this is one of our demand curve, which looks more elastic? Just visually, which one looks more elastic? This one, right? Why is this more elastic? Because the demand curve is more stretched. What that means is that right here, even if there is a very small change in price level, there is a relatively large change in QD. And over here, this is not very elastic. Take a look. Even if there is a very large change in price, by comparison, the change in QD is not very high. And that is basically the concept of elasticity. You guys should have noticed by now is that the concept of responsiveness and the concept of elasticity are very closely related. They're almost the same thing. So, okay, so I think that is it for this section. Yeah, that is it. So now we are going to move on to introducing the 4 types of elasticities that we are going to be concerned with for the rest of this semester.